Video I'm going to be comparing the Oliver franchise to the Treasure Planet franchise. Both of these ones started off as a book that was then adapted into film multiple times. When it comes to Oliver franchise, I've seen the Disney animated movie Oliver and Company, which is a loose adaptation of the book. I've also seen some of the 1968 adaptation of the musical. When it comes to Treasure Planet, I've seen the Disney animated movie Treasure Planet. That's the only one I've seen as of right now. When it comes to the highest Rotten Tomatoes score for each franchise, in the case of Oliver, the 1948 movie has the highest score of 100%. And actually, in the case of Treasure Island, both the 1934 movie as well as the 1950 movie have a 100%. So we actually have a tie here. Then we're going to look at the lowest score. In the case of the Oliver franchise, the Disney animated movie Oliver and Company has the lowest score of only 53%. In the case of Treasure Planet or Treasure Island, the 1972 movie has the lowest score of only 18%, so Oliver wins here. Then when you look at average score, Oliver has an average of 81, whereas Treasure Planet is an average of 68, so Oliver wins here. Then when you look at gap between lowest and highest score, in the case of Treasure Planet, pretty big gap because there's 82% between 118. In the case of Oliver, you have a gap of 47 between 53 and 100. So Oliver wins here, meaning it is going to win this debate regardless of my personal opinion because it's already won 3 rounds. But let's look at that now. Which franchise do I prefer? So what that comes down to is, which movie do I like more? Oliver and Company or Treasure Planet? In the case of Treasure Planet, it's about this boy named Jim Hawkins who, at first, we can see is just yearning for adventure. He's getting into trouble. His family, especially his mom, isn't very happy about that. And then Jim goes off to this other place where he meets this band of pirates led by this captain who seems to not really care much about Jim at first. So there's the question running throughout the movie, is there any goodness within this guy at all, or is he utterly devoid of that? By the end of the movie, we see that he actually does have some amount of goodness within him, because actually he makes it clear to Jim, I want you to do what's best for you. I want whatever is going to make you happy. So we see that, he does genuinely care about Jim. Earlier on, Jim heard the captain talking to his crew. His crew is like, really? Captain, you care about this guy? What's wrong with you? And so the captain says all the things he knows they want to hear. He says, I don't care about Jim at all. I'll leave him the first chance I get. Jim is obviously hurt by this. But then you get to a moment at the end of the movie, which is quite important, where the captain could get the treasure, but that would mean having to abandon Jim. He could have made the selfish decision there of abandoning Jim in order to get the gold, but does he do that? No, he actually chooses Jim over the money. That's the important moment to show that with this guy, at least he has some degree of morality, unlike some of the other members of his crew who just seem fully bad. I honestly like the movie. I think the visual style of it is pretty interesting. It definitely shifts from the beginning of the movie to later on. In the case of Oliver and Company, it's a movie about dogs, so it can feel a little bit similar anyway to a few other Disney movies that are about dogs or cats. I mean, you have Aristocats, Fox and the Hound, Lady and the Tramp, 101 Dalmatians. In the case of Oliver and Company, it's about this little dog, this puppy, who at first, actually I think it's a cat, if I remember right. You have this animal right at the beginning of the movie who really wants to get a home, wants some human to find him and take him home, but sadly that doesn't end up happening. So he's out on the streets, but he meets this dog named Oliver. He and these other animals all are a family. Basically, they have each other's backs. Oliver and the other animals do give this puppy a home, but then he ends up meeting this girl who actually takes him in. Fortunately, actually does really care about him. But the rest of the animals aren't very happy about that. They actually are all living with this guy who's working for basically a crime boss. He's not doing very well. He's in a bad situation. You can tell he does care about the animals. I like that by the end of the movie, everyone's a lot happier than before, where this our main animal is actually living with this little girl, and while Oliver and his band of animals aren't living with her specifically, they have nothing against this human, actually. And in fact, everyone by the end of the movie is celebrating a birthday together. It's pretty heartwarming, to be honest. So when it comes to which movie I prefer, Oliver and Company or Treasure Planet, I think that I'm going to actually choose Treasure Planet, to be honest, just because it doesn't really feel like any other Disney movie, whereas with Oliver and Company, it's not that it's identical to these other movies. No, there are differences, but it feels a bit familiar, a bit similar to some other Disney films. So, that'll be it for this video on choosing Treasure Planet. Bye, everyone.